Namaste, I'm Brijesh, and in this video we will continue to learn about the role of diversification in a portfolio. In our previous video on risk analysis, we had learnt about risk and types of risks, that is systematic and unsystematic risk, and their characteristics. We saw how systematic risk could not be avoided, but unsystematic risk, it can be brought down or reduced considerably using portfolio diversification. So in this video, we will continue to learn about diversification of a portfolio using modern portfolio theory. If you have not seen my previous video on risk analysis, I will add the link to that video in the end. So hang on till the end. We are going to learn a lot about portfolio diversification and the modern portfolio theory. So in this video, we will learn about the modern portfolio theory. We shall learn how addition of stock brings about diversification in a portfolio and reduces the unsystematic risk. We will learn about mean variance curves and the effect of weighted averages and correlation on the mean variance graphs of a portfolio. We will understand in detail and see how to create a two-stock portfolio so as to give optimal returns for a given level of risk. We will get an introduction to tangency portfolio and efficient frontiers of a portfolio. We will observe the change in efficient frontiers and tangency portfolios when stocks are added to a portfolio. And finally, we shall have a quick look on how asset management companies do the diversification of a portfolio of a mutual fund. So let's have a quick recap from our last video. What you can see now is the effect of adding stocks to a portfolio depicted graphically. As we have learned that there exists two types of risks in a portfolio, that is systematic and unsystematic, nothing much can be done to remove the systematic risk. But stock addition to a portfolio reduces the unsystematic risk considerably. The process is called diversification. The graph shows that when only one stock existed in the portfolio, the total risk of the portfolio was at point A. Then on addition of stocks to the portfolio, the unsystematic risk starts reducing, and after adding 4 stocks to the portfolio, it comes down to point B. Finally, having added n number of stocks to the portfolio, the unsystematic risk comes down to point C. Though the systematic risk remained unaffected during the stock addition, that is, during a one-stock portfolio situation or a multiple stocks portfolio situation. Now let's see how it works. That is, how addition of stocks brings about a reduction in the unsystematic risk in a portfolio. So let's define a portfolio first. A portfolio is defined as a set of weights of securities where the weights add up to 1. This means that if you have n stocks in a portfolio, then the sum total of weights of the stocks equal to 1. It also means that if there is a portfolio P, then the return RP of that portfolio equals to the sum of products of weights and returns of the individual stocks. Okay? We will understand this in detail in a moment. Now let's understand two words here, mean and variance. Now mean with respect to an individual stock means the average return of that stock. It is given by symbol mu. And variance? Now variance with respect to an individual stock indicates the risk component denoted by sigma squared. And standard deviation is the risk which is equal to the square root of the variance and is denoted by sigma. So variance is sigma squared and sigma equals to standard deviation. So basically variance, standard deviation is the square root of variance. And a portfolio, it just means a group of stocks. So let's understand diversification. Now diversification is the method of having the best risk-reward trade-off, which means for the portfolio thus achieved, that is after diversification, one cannot do any better than that portfolio. That is, one cannot get a high return for the given level of risk, or one cannot have a lesser risk for the achieved level of return. So it is based on the assumption that all the investors want higher returns and lower risks or volatility. Portfolio creation is an attempt to try and create a group of weights of stocks so that the risk of the combination of stocks is lesser than any individual stock and the return given by the combination of those stocks is higher than the return given by any of the individual stock. but the portfolio may or may not achieve the desired result. So it is based on the assumption that all the investors like higher expected returns and they do not like risks as measured by volatility. But since it is inevitable to have risk, they want lowest risk or lowest volatility possible. And so we show this using this graph. Now in this graph, we take risk or standard deviation of the entire portfolio on the horizontal x-axis and the expected returns of that portfolio on the vertical axis, that is y-axis. The portfolio consists of 4 stocks that we have taken. Now the question is, in which area on the graph do we find maximum level of satisfaction or happiness? That is in terms of gains and volatility. Now happiness means higher gains and lower risks. Now looking at the graph, any investor would want to go into the direction shown by the black arrow. That is the top left portion. Why? The arrow showing up means higher expected returns and the arrow pointing left means low risks taken. Hence, the black arrow means increasing gains and reducing volatility. So this means all of us would be very happy if we climb the y-axis way up. It means no risk and huge gains. And we know that is not possible. So we take a group of stocks here. They can be any stock of any sector. Shown are 4 stocks, S1, S2, S3 and S4. Now, one option open is that we invest 100% in one stock that is closest to our happiness zone. That is on the top left. And stock 2 looks like an ideal bet. But then notice that S1, though has a lower return, has lower risk also. Okay? And S3 has the highest return but has considerably high risk also. And S4 looks like a not so worth of a stock given the highest risk and not an impressive return. But please also note, the data used to plot this point is from the past. Okay. Now looking at the randomness of the stock market, it is difficult to say that S4 will always remain like this. In fact, the very past records have shown that many stocks like S4 can give phenomenal returns at times. So which one to pick is the point, and there is absolutely no clarity. Okay, so there is something else that can be done. We can take a combination of certain weights from all the stocks and create a portfolio. Now having a minimal correlation amongst stocks S1, S2, S3 and S4 is very important here. Remember correlation? Okay, if not, then please refer to my previous video on risk analysis. Okay, as a quick refresher, now correlation is a statistical technique that can show whether and how strongly are pairs of stocks related to each other. If the returns of 2 stocks gain and lose in sync with variations in stock market, then they are said to be positively correlated. Hence, if one goes up, the other goes up. And if one goes down, the other follows in sync and goes down. So this is an example of positive correlation. Now for a portfolio to be well diversified, it is essential that the stocks in that portfolio have minimal or very low correlation. Okay, low correlation means that if one stock goes up, the other stock does not go up in sync with it. So low correlation means that if one stock goes up, the other does not go up in sync with it. Okay, correlation can range between +1 to -1. Now, where +1 means a positive correlation, -1 means a negative correlation. So negative correlation means that if one stock goes up, the other goes down. Hence, for a portfolio to be well diversified, it is desirable that the stocks in the portfolio have minimal or very low correlation and if possible, negative correlation. Okay. So now let's take an example of just 2 stocks to understand a portfolio construct. Later we can generalize the understanding from this example for multiple stocks as it involves a lot of complicated mathematics and statistics also. Now for a certain period, say 10 years, the monthly returns of stock A and stock B are given over here along with their standard deviations. Now stock A has a monthly average return of 2% and standard deviation of 12%, whereas stock B has a monthly average return of 1.2% and a standard deviation of 6%. Okay. Now the correlation between them is A and B. The correlation between A and B is 0.5 plus 0.5. Now, how will a portfolio of various combination of the weights of the 2 stocks perform? What combination of A and B should I use to get maximum benefits with optimal risk? That is, should I use 100% of A and 0% of B, or vice versa? Or should I buy 25% of A and 75% of B, or vice versa? Or should I buy just 50-50 of both? How can I find the best weights to give the best risk-reward trade-off? Now the answer here depends upon an individual's appetite for risk. There is nothing like a right answer or a wrong answer. It's an individual's choice of return over risk that one is willing to take. It varies from person to person and their risk-bearing appetite. Somebody may choose a high risk and high return portfolio, whereas the other may choose a low risk and low return portfolio. Both have reasons for doing so, both have their objectives, both have their financial objectives for doing so, and nothing is right or wrong. Okay? Mark the correlation. It's 0.5 in this case, and this is the relation between the standard deviations of two stocks, their covariances and correlations. Correlation between two stocks A and B is shown by rho AB and is equal to covariance between A and B divided by product of standard deviations of A and B. Okay? Now let's create a mean variance table here. That is a table containing expected returns and variance for different weights or combinations of A and B. Now some formulas that are going to be used are as shown here. Now ERP is the expected return of the portfolio, WA is the weight of stock A, and WB is the weight of stock B. The formula used to calculate the estimated returns with various weights combinations of A and B is, now ERP equals RAWA plus RBWB, that is sum of products of returns and weights of each stock in the portfolio. And variance is calculated by this equation. Variance RP equals product of squares of weight of stock A and standard deviation of A plus product of squares of weight of stock B and standard deviation of B plus twice product of weights of A and B and product of standard deviations of A and B and their correlation. This is how it looks like. Okay. Now this is just for two stocks. Now once we feed in the available data into these equations, they start looking like this. So we have fed all the available data like returns from A and B, standard deviations and correlation into the equations. Now we are left with two equations with variables WA and WB. Now let's put our values to a table like this and calculate the values of expected returns and variances for a few combinations of weights A and B. That is, for example, 100% A and 0% B. That is our portfolio number 1. We designate it by P1. So P1 is 100% of A and 0% of B. Okay. The P2 is 75% of A and 25% of B. P3 is 50-50 of both, and so on. Now you can see P6 and P7 also. They contain negative values of A and more than 100 value of B. We will understand this in a moment from now. Also, the standard deviation is nothing but the square root of the variance. Okay. So this is how the table looks like. Now note that this table pertains to a correlation of 0.5. So what would happen if I increase the correlation from 0.5 to say 0.75? How would the variance respond? Just think. Look at the formula of variance. Correlation adds linearly to the variance. So if correlation increases, the variance increases, and vice versa. Hence we can make out that an increase in correlation increases overall portfolio variance. That is, increase in correlation will only increase the risk of the portfolio. A decrease in correlation will decrease the risk. Now look at the table. P1 and P5 are extreme points. P1 is 100% investment in stock A and 0 in B, and P5 is 100% investment in stock B and 0 in A. Now in these cases, we simply reach the points of returns and risks of A and B respectively. Now P3 is a 50-50 investment in both. Hence the returns are averaged between the two. You can see here, the returns have averaged between the two. Now look at the risks or standard deviations. The standard deviations are not averaged out. Now risk is not equal to the average of the two risks. Why? Because risks do not add or average out linearly. their movement is non-linear. Okay, also now let's see what happens when we plot the mean variance curve. We get a curve like this. Expected returns are on the y-axis and standard deviation is on the x-axis. I like to call this graph a mean variance graph or a risk-reward graph, because variance is the risk or standard deviation on the x-axis and expected return is the mean return or the reward, that is on y-axis. Points A and B are the extreme conditions. Point A is 100% investment in stock A and 0% in B, and point B is 100% investment in stock B and 0% in A. Now let's name these portfolios on the curve. Hence P1 to P5. A portfolio 1 is point A and portfolio 5 is point B. Points P1, P2, P3, P4 lie on the upper branch or outer portion of the curve, commonly called as the efficient frontier. Yes, this is the efficient frontier. Now we got this curve taking different weighted averages of the stocks that we can buy as investments. Now every single dot on this curve corresponds to a specific portfolio or weighting. By changing the weights of stocks, you can change your position on the curve and hence the risk and return characteristics of your portfolio. Now let's see a couple of assumptions here. Let's define a rational investor first. So a rational investor is somebody who prefers more returns to less and prefers less risk to more. That means he wants more return instead of having a less return, and he would always prefer lesser risk as compared to more risk. This rational investor will always move from high risk to low risk situation for a given level of return, or will move from a low return to a high return situation for a given level of risk. Okay? Now let's talk about some assumptions. So first assumption here is, on the efficient frontier, the returns are maximum for the given level of risk, or in other words, no lesser risk is possible for the given return. Hence P2, P3 and P4 are the portfolios where any rational investor would want to be. Okay? Now second assumption, P6 and P7 are portfolios where A is short sold, which means A is borrowed from a shareholder and sold, and the leverage, which means the proceeds received from selling the borrowed stock A, is used to buy stock B. Okay? Yes, it's possible in stock market. Though clearly it is not advisable in this case, as for the points P6 and P7, a higher expected return is possible for the same level of risk taken at points P4 and P3. Now you can see these points P6 and P7. Just above these points, there are points P4 and P3 which are at the same level of risk. Okay, so it's not advisable to enter into a situation like P6 and P7. Instead, portfolios P2, P3 and P4 are worth investing into. Now a third assumption. Now these points, consider points P8 and P9. Now portfolios P8 and P9 are not the portfolios worth holding. In fact, any place inside the curve is not the place to be for any rational investor, because a more better expected return is possible on the efficient frontier for the same level of given risk. Okay? In case of a portfolio comprising of only two stocks, the efficient frontier necessarily passes through both mean variance points of stocks A and B. But soon we will see that when there are more than two stocks in a portfolio, the efficient frontier does not pass through any one, and all the mean variance points or portfolio points will lie inside the efficient curve and none on the curve. Now consider another situation. For a portfolio comprising of combination of stocks from stock market, that is one risky portfolio or asset, and a risk-free asset like T-bills, government bonds, G-Sec or FDs, etc. Okay? That is the same problem, just that stock A is replaced by a risky portfolio comprising of one or many stocks. The stock B has been replaced by a risk-free asset like T-bills, government securities or debt funds. Okay? So using the same set of formulas, we derive the table for various weight combinations of the two types. Now please note that standard deviation of a risk-free return is 0. Hence we get a table like this. Now here P1 and P2 are portfolios where risk-free assets are borrowed and sold, that is short sold. and leverage is used to buy risky portfolio stocks from stock market bearing high risk. Okay, let's see how it looks. When plotted on a mean variance graph, this is how it goes. It's a straight line. That means a portfolio comprising of combination of risk-free investments and risky stocks will always be a straight line as shown below. A P3 is 100% investment in stock market. At P3, risk is 12% and return is 2%. Now, P7 is 100% investment in risk-free asset. The risk here is 0% and return is only 0.6%. P4 is 75% stocks and 25% in risk-free assets. P5 is 50-50 in both. P6 is 25% in stocks and 75% in risk-free assets. Now, point to note here is that the line is divided between P7 and P3 in the ratio of their weights of investments in the two types of assets respectively. For example, at 3/4 distance from P7, that is point P4, the investment into stock market is 3/4 of the total investment. Okay? At P5, that is at the midpoint between P3 and P7, the investments are 50 and 50 in both types. So the line acts as a scale to depict the percentage investments in risky and risk-free assets. P1 and P2, as explained earlier, are points where risk-free assets are short sold to use the leverages to buy risky stocks. Now let's consider the previous examples and let the risk-free rate be at R and risky asset or a risky portfolio be depicted at point Q. Hence, from the previous example, we have come to know that a combination of weights of risk-free asset R and risky portfolio Q will lie on the line RQ. Now consider our curve containing the efficient frontier of two stocks A and B. Hence, a combination of risk-free asset R and stock B will be depicted by line RB. Okay? Similarly, a combination of risk-free asset R and stock A will be depicted by line RA. Now, to find a portfolio P on the efficient frontier, that is one point where the portfolio P will do the best and that no other portfolio combination can beat portfolio P. Now, it is the tangent on the efficient frontier from the point R, that is line RP. The point P is called the tangency portfolio, and the green line RP is any combination of weights of portfolio P and risk-free investment R. So it is the best risk-reward trade-off possibility that any rational investor would like to be on. That is, any rational investor would like to be on the tangency portfolio, which means any other portfolio cannot do any better than portfolio P. That is, one cannot get a high return for the given level of risk, or one cannot have a lesser risk for the given level of return. Okay? Now, in case of risky portfolio containing only two stocks, the efficient frontier necessarily passes through both mean variance points of stocks A and B. But when there are more than two stocks, then the efficient frontier does not touch any of the mean variance points, and all the mean variance points of all the stocks necessarily lie within the boundary of the efficient frontier curve, none on the curve. Now let's consider 3 points on the mean variance graph for 3 stocks A, B and C. For 3 stocks, the mean variance table is plotted for various values of weights WA, WB and WC using the following formulas. Now it turns out that the expected returns of the portfolio is the weighted average of the expected returns of the component stocks where the weights are our choice variables. A choice where we invest in various percentages in the 3 stocks, totaling to 100% of our investment. It's done using means or average returns of stocks depicted by mu, and variances of the portfolio is found using a somewhat more complicated equation using weights of stocks, variances of stocks and covariances of pairs of stocks for all the combinations shown in the formula. Now shown is the formula that is used, and it is done using matrices and other mathematical tools and also a computer. Looks quite tedious, and we will not worry about any such calculations. For our understanding, we will generalize the results of the 2 stock portfolio theory. Okay, so you can see the equations here. ERP equals to WA mu A plus WB mu B plus WC mu C. Okay, and variance of RP is given by this beautiful big formula. Okay, now we obtain a table for various combination of weights of A, B and C and plot the expected returns against the standard deviation of returns, and we get this curve. Now this is the bullet shaped curve that we generate using 3 securities and from their covariances. Also, unlike in the case of 2 asset example where the bullet shaped curve passed through the points, here in this case of 3 assets or more than 3 assets, the bullet shaped curve does not pass through any of the points. The bullet will actually include these assets as special cases within the periphery, but they will not be on the curve, none of them. Hence, in case of 3 stocks or more, none of the mean variance points of any stock lie on the bullet curve. They all lie within the curve. Now this explains that it is not rational to invest 100% in just any one of the stocks, as a better return option is always possible for the same amount of risk taken when selecting from all the stocks in a certain combination of weights. So any rational investor is going to remain on the upper branch of that curve or the efficient frontier of the curve, nowhere within the curve. Now in case a risk-free asset is involved, the best portfolio to invest is the tangency portfolio T1 of efficient frontier 1. Now as one adds more stocks, the upper branch of the efficient frontier moves to the top left portion of the picture, thereby reducing risk and increasing the expected returns. Let's see the same with more examples. Now let's add 2 more points. Let's again draw a new bullet curve. Now notice how the new bullet curve for these 5 points has moved upwards and leftwards with respect to the efficient frontier 1. Now let's call this efficient frontier 2 and the associated tangency portfolio as T2. Now let's add another 3 stocks and plot their mean variance points. Now note that the new efficient frontier 3 moves further left and further upwards, thereby pushing the new efficient frontier 3 much further into our desired zone. The new tangency portfolio is T3. So an investor who wants to invest in a risk-free asset along with the risky assets should necessarily remain on tangent portfolio T3. Note how addition of stocks has pushed the bullet curve from efficient frontier 1 to efficient frontier 3 position. This means any further addition of stocks to this portfolio will only result in pushing the new bullet curve on the top left direction, shown by the black arrow, which means increase in expected returns and decrease in overall risk of the portfolio. Okay? So this is how the addition of stocks into a certain portfolio increases the gains and reduces the risk. So if we pick a point P in the risk reward graph and ask the question, what are the other portfolios that are strictly preferred to point A? The answer is any portfolio that has a high return than A, that is pointing upwards, and lower risk than A, that is pointing leftwards. Hence any portfolio in the highlighted quadrant will be preferred to A, not in the other 3 quadrants. Now let's see the influence of correlation on the bullet curve. When correlation equals to 1, in other words, when stocks A and B are perfectly correlated, expected returns versus standard deviation, that is risk reward trade-off, is a straight line. So there is a complete linearity between the two. One rises, the other rises, one goes down, the other goes down. It's fairly simple. So you virtually have the same stock, only with different scales. So no bullet curve in this case. Also, extended lines below point A means one has short sold stock B to buy stock A. So risk reduces, but so does expected return in this case, and vice versa for extension above point B. Now let's move further. Let's start reducing the correlation gradually. Reducing correlation means the beginning of risk-reward trade-off getting better and better. Look at the bump that is caused by bullet curve with correlation 0.5. So if you notice the bump, it starts moving upwards and leftwards depicting a reduction in risk and increase in the expected returns. So zero correlation means an even better risk reward trade-off. It means a lesser risk than 0.5 correlation and a better expected growth than 0.5 correlation. A correlation negative 0.5 is even better in both terms. Now look at the correlation equals to -1. That is a perfectly negative correlation. Something amazing happens here. We get two sets of risk-reward trade-offs, one above and the other down in shape of two arms of a triangle. If the two stocks have a perfectly matching standard deviation, then the vertex of the triangle hits the y-axis. Now this is an excellent finding, as it means that in this case, an investor will get approximately 1.2% return monthly with zero risk. This means approximately 14% return annually for a certain specific combination of stocks A and B. Why this is amazing? It is amazing because it tells us that there exists at least one particular combination of A and B, or rather, it tells us that there exists a particular way to create a portfolio that can give us a rate of return of 1.2% monthly with zero risk. That is approximately 14% annual return with zero risk. That's not possible. It's practically not possible. Practically, because it is impossible to find two assets that are perfectly negatively correlated to each other. It's very difficult. It's not possible. But if we could do something less than that, say if we could find stocks with correlations negative 0.05, negative 0.5, or we can find a stock simply with a negative correlation, we could achieve some wonderful results in terms of risk and reward trade-off. So we realize that if we can find a negatively correlated stock, we can create amazing portfolios that can give us amazing returns with amazing low-risk situations. Here, I have tried to show the relation between correlations and standard deviations for various conditions. Okay, just look at these slides. Okay, now in this slide, as you can see here, it is the same example given, our previous example, but here in this case we will consider three cases with correlation -1. Now the first case is stock A has returned 2% and stock B has returned 1.2%, but both have the same standard deviations and the correlation between them is a perfectly negative. So you can see this is basically, it looks like a hairpin. Okay, and the vertex of this triangle is basically touching the y-axis at somewhere around 1.2% monthly return. So this is an amazing situation. You see, 0% risk and with definite return of 1.2% monthly. That means somewhere around 14% annual return. Okay. Okay. In the second case, we basically have stock A and stock B with same returns, but the standard deviations are different. Stock A has 12% standard deviation and stock B has 6%. In this case, we get a normal bullet curve, the one we have achieved in the past. Okay. And the third condition is this one, where you have somebody would not like to enter into such a situation, because for a stock giving a return of 1.2% and having a standard deviation 12%, whereas the other stock is giving you 2%, that is a high return with a lower standard deviation, why would anyone prefer going with stock B? So this is practically, I've just taken it for the sake of giving an example, but this is a situation that anybody would like to avoid. Okay. Next situation is, next condition is this. So in case of a perfect correlation, stock A and stock B have the same returns, like given stock A has 2% return, stock B has 1.2% returns, but they have identical standard deviations in this case. So the mean variance straight line is basically a line that is parallel to y-axis. The second situation would be like this. In this case, stock A has 2% return and 12% standard deviation. Stock B has 1.2 return and 6% standard deviation. The resultant is the mean variance graph is a straight line pointing upwards. It looks like this. Okay. And the third condition is like this, and nobody would like to enter into this kind of a situation, because when you have a stock giving you 2% return and 6% standard deviation, why would somebody invest in a stock giving you a lesser return with a higher risk? So in this case, as you can see, the straight line formed is trending downwards. So with increasing risk, the return should have increased like in the first case, but here it is decreasing. So with increase in risk, the return is decreasing. Who would prefer such a stock? A third condition is somewhere here in between. So you can see stock A again has 2% return and standard the same condition, okay, but correlation is 0.5 here. So we get a bullet curve like this in the first situation. The second condition is the typical condition that we have used in our previous example. And then again, the third situation is that anyone and everyone would avoid. So here in this case, I've tried to show you how a mean variance curve varies in case of different correlations. Correlations I've shown you is -1, +1, and in between situation that is 0.5. Now here is a snapshot of how mutual funds diversify portfolios, that is shown in the table. Now what you can see here is the portfolio table of a CRISIL 5-star rated mid-cap fund of a leading asset management company. It consists of 46 stocks and debt funds. Look at how diversification is achieved, and hence unsystematic risk of all stocks has been minimized, and what remains is just the systematic risk, that is the market risk. Now as you can see, this mutual fund consists of pharmaceutical sector stocks comprising of 15.84% of the portfolio, whereas details of all the companies that it has invested in is given here. The Ipca Laboratories 5.05%, Divi's Lab 3.64%, Alembic Pharmaceuticals 2.92%, and like this Dr. Reddy 1.87%. Okay. And now another sector that they have invested into is industrial products. So in industrial products, they have invested 12.2%. Banks, they have invested 5.52%. Chemicals industries, they have invested 5.3%. Fertilizers, 3.9%. Softwares, 3.89%. Now look at the kind of diversification that they have done. It's so minutely diversified. Small percentages have been allotted to every sector. Okay. So money market instruments is the risk-free asset, and they have invested 8% here. That means this portfolio comprises of 8% risk-free asset, and the balance 92% is the risky asset. So that's all for now in this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like the content of this video and if you find it relevant, do give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. I also request you to please pardon me for my sore throat throughout the program. Okay, you can comment and post your questions or suggestions in the comment box. I will see you very soon in my next video. Until then, take care. Bye bye.